Hi everyone, I'm Dan, aka Poor Man's Air Force on the RC Powers Forum. This is my son Tanner, 11 years old, and we've taken up the hobby of taking perfectly good sheets of foam and turning them into little small pieces. People have been asking me about the hot wire table I built, and I said I'd try and do a little video, so here goes nothing. Today we'll be cutting out, this is the wing of the Boxer Mad F-16, and this is what it looks like finished. I was going to maiden it tonight, but it's a little too windy, so it'll have to wait. But weighs 15.5 ounces with a 2200 milliamp hour battery with a Microjet 3 version 3, and should scoot. Did a little reinforcements on it, but that's the part we'll be cutting out, this wing right here. There you go. And this is the foam I've been using. It's just the Foamular 150 from Home Depot or Lowe's or wherever. I think I got this from some lumber company. The bad part about this foam is the center of the foam is a little denser than the outside layers. And when you see the big bow that I built now with 7 string wires on it, you'll understand why that's important. But anyway, this will give you an idea of stuff that you can do with a hot wire table. This was supposed to be a backpack parachute for my daughter's American Girl dolls. We were going to strap an American Girl doll on here, and we were going to enter this in the RC Powers airplane design contest they had back in March, and I just never quite got it finished all up. But the wing here, this is actually the rib template, or wing template. And if you saw my album on the RC Powers Forum, there's 3 wing sections, and then I took those wing sections and come off the end of the table and sliced them on an angle, and then glued them all back together to create an arch, kind of like a canopy chute. 2 carbon fiber rods, and this here was actually turned on the lathe. I first cut the outside by spinning the lathe with my hand, running a hot wire around, holding a hot wire and turning it against the hot wire, and then I went through, cut out the inside, and laid it up with some drywall fiberglass mesh tape for joint tape. Epoxied it. It's actually very strong, and the idea was it was going to be, you can see this, it was going to be thrust vectoring. And it worked great. It fit the Microjet with a 6.4 prop. It worked perfectly. The only problem was the thrust line should have been higher, or I need more weight down below, because it just, when you try to launch it, it just wants to flip over itself, do a somersault. But anyway, someday when I have a little more time. So I'll describe a little bit the table. It's 27 inches wide, 36 inches long, it's 6 inches tall, and it's basically a hollow box, sealed hollow box, meaning all the joints are glued with construction glue to keep any air infiltration from going through cracks. There's 5 ribs basically. The 3 in the middle have holes drilled in them to allow for air movement. There's a cheater hole right here with a little sliding door, and that sliding door I'll explain a little bit. The back one, the end plate, has a shop vac hose attached to it, and the shop vacs are around the back just for noise. And it's a shop vac that we can either vacuum or we can blow. And so we can create a vacuum on the deck here through these little 3/32 holes that are 2 inches on the center. We can either suck a piece down and use our hot wire bow to cut it, or we can blow air into the box and lift it, and that's what we'll be using on the scroll saw attachment here, and this piece will just float around. So the cheater hole, if you have a very large piece, you don't want to starve the shop vac for air, because that's how it cools the motor. So you have to have this cheater hole to make sure that you're not you're going to burn your motor up if you deny it any airflow. On the sides here, there is on both sides there is a oak, just it's like a ledger, and there's a steel. It's 1.25 inch by 1/8 inch steel that I've polished the top edge on, and it's held on by magnets. And I've had some trouble keeping them on with epoxy. Next time I will use it's 1/2 inch diameter magnets. I will use the ones with the holes in the center that allow you to use a screw to fasten it. Then you can move them around, and you won't have to worry about them coming loose. The idea of this whole thing is it can come off to do your scroll saw. This is smooth. But when you put it on, it's actually proud of the surface just a little bit to allow for your wire to clear if you want to do some undercutting. And then I've got some shim blocks here that I've cut out of end grain oak, and basically you take it and you shim up front and back on both sides, and that gives you a 1/4 inch right here. So I can take my bow and I can lay it on here and run it down through here and cut a 1/4 inch thickness. And I've got different size blocks for 1/2 inch to make KF2 airfoils, whatever. Allows you to do a lot of different things. The bow is actually just a fiberglass driveway marker rod that I cut up. Bought at Home Depot. Drilled some pine blocks. Very lightweight, no springs or any extra hardware, and it gives you 2 good handles to work with. Wire's 28, actually this is 26 gauge wire, but I will be using 28 gauge wire, nichrome wire from now on. And I use just the banana plug connectors, same ones I use on my batteries and ESCs. The way this works is my template sits on here like that, and you just use magnets to hold the template on, just like that, however many you think you need, and it really won't move. You can easily run a wire up over this. On this particular rib, when I ran around down this back pointing out, it left a little rib on the bottom of the wing. You just sand it off or whatever. I actually use a monocoat iron. Best $20 I've ever spent. And I heat mold my foam edges, both the trailing and leading edges. And so this little piece here was going in no time. I've actually got some new templates I've made. These are aluminum, and again I can take these up and down as needed with these blocks to work with any thickness foam I want. The idea behind these is I can work with any wing and have a modified full airfoil, and I'd like to build some and play around with them and see how they compare to KF airfoils and so on, because I can. So the scroll attachment, it's ugly because I really thought I'd have to redo it, and it works so well I haven't touched it. It's on a hinge here, and it basically comes up and it's tensioned. This is the flat plywood piece here, arm here, pulls the tension on the wire, and it's got a little eye on a block down there. It's actually a hook on a block down underneath the deck. It's held up by a screw with a large hole, so I can actually move that piece around and get this wire square in both directions. This is a MIG welding tip that I've turned down to 1/16 of an inch. It's turned to fit into a piece of all thread, which is like a lamp fixture part, soldered together. And this is just a copper water pipe cap with a copper pipe inside of a 1/2 inch or 5/8 hole in this block, and that was just to electrically isolate this from this, so all the electricity has to run through the wire instead of down through here. And then it's tensioned with this nut, and you'll see when I break it down how this works. And it's just a wire again clamped to that's 28 gauge nichrome wire. It runs about 6.5 to 7 volts is what I'm running it on for power. And again, it's hooked up with banana plugs, same as my batteries and ESCs.